hadn't seen him since.
We could wonder if it got moved in or whether it's delayed some more.
So, you know, they were in Crawford.
Yeah.
They're moving right across the hall from me.
Oh, really?
Right now they're doing that, they're putting the two together.
Uh-huh.
There's been a lot of banging. They're moving the door over.
Okay. So are they gonna be on facing the courtyard? Okay. You're on the courtyard side. Okay.
I was going through.
We have for free.
Yeah, we did.
We went out to the late Christmas day and spent the next week out there. John kept testing positive. But they said that once his quarantine period is over, he's free. And he could test positive for, several. Anyway, so we're free. You're out. We're out. I'm feeling good.
How you?
You didn't even know you had it. He didn't have any problem at all. I felt pretty bad.
Well, I feel cheated too.
Have you even had it? You're one of the non-COVID.
I did have a fever and cough one time and it came up and tested me. I didn't have it. I just had to flip this on.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Gail. How are you? Oh, well, you're sweet. Thank you very much.
I'm going to sit here.
Oh, you're sitting here?
Is it okay?
Oh, of course. But is Sherry sitting here? Or where is she? I don't know.
But the point is that
Hello,
I want to have a good view.
yeah. Oh, you're very kind. Hi, Tom.
I was sitting there, and I just found fine.
With all the views going on.
Yeah. I know. I thought, well,
Richard.
I'm going to move over. Another.
Please, it's been
Nothing personal. Judy. This is good.
She's really much young. She's still young now, but she's much younger.
We were all good here.
Faster every year. I'm getting a blue
That didn't work out. They thought,
But you can just see how in the war they were cleaning up too much time.
Sherry, get started here.
He does not want to write.
What you got?
But I like this one.
We'll go by your watch. 2 more minutes. Have you ever seen any of her? Yeah, I've seen a couple of them. They're very good. Very knowledgeable.
Chips.
I know. Yeah. Get a free cruise ship. Make her president like this.
Okay, it's time to begin. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you'll find this enlightening and maybe a little bit fun. I'm going to be talking about the adoration of the Magi in art. And we'll see how the image develops over from the 4th century to the Renaissance. After the Renaissance, religious art pretty much dies out. What becomes popular is portraits and images of people out having picnics and parties and dances like in Peter Bruegel. But early on, we had these wonderful images starting in the catacombs. A little bit about me. I was born in Waco, went to Baylor, but I was redeemed. I came to UT for graduate school, where I studied art history and got my master's there in 1990. So a lot of what I learned, most of what I learned from those years, but also from my family. We took a 2-week trip every summer. My father was a lawyer in Waco. The only way Mother could keep him out of the office was to drag him off somewhere 1,000 miles away. So we traveled all over the United States, and then culminating in 1967, went on a 6-week trip to Europe, where I saw so much art and didn't realize it, but I was falling in love with art history. I was a history major, so it was perfect for me to connect with the art. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, we'll start in the Bible because that's our text. And it starts, this image and this story comes out of Matthew 2, 1 through 12. After Jesus had been born at Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod, some wise men came to Jerusalem from the east. "Where is the infant king of the Jews?" they asked. "We saw his star as it rose and have come to pay him homage." King Herod interviewed the wise men, hoping to have them lead him to the newborn Jesus, whom he regarded as a threat to his reign. The miraculous star led the wise men directly to the child. The sight of the star filled them with delight, and going into the house, they saw the child with his mother, Mary. And falling to their knees, they did him homage. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. The gold symbolized kingship. Jesus was a king. And the frankincense was that Jesus was a priest. So incense was used in liturgical situations. And then the myrrh was used for embalming. So Jesus was also a man. If he hadn't been a man, then the crucifixion would mean nothing because he wouldn't have suffered. There are Old Testament prophecies of the Magi coming to Christ's birth. Isaiah 60 says, "Arise, shine, for your light has come. The Lord will arise upon you, and his glory will be seen upon you. And nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. All those from Sheba shall come, they shall bring gold and frankincense, and shall proclaim the salvation of the Lord." Now, Magus has to do with magic. These wise men from the east were thought to be stargazers, astrologists of sorts. And also they were magicians. So they weren't kings. But anyway, the art was to take them that way. Micah 5:2 is the prophecy, "In you, O Bethlehem, from you shall come a ruler who will govern my people Israel." Origen, an early Christian writer, suggested that the star had been forecast by Balaam, a Mesopotamian magus, who said, there will come a man out of Israel's seed, and he will rule many nations. A star will rise from Jacob, and a man will stand forth. Tertullian, an early Christian father, was the first to call the Magi kings. And he referred to Psalm 72, where foreigners bring gifts. May the kings of Tarshish and the isles surrender him tribute. May all kings fall down before him, all nations serve him. Now, when we first see the Magi, they're not kings. In the catacombs, they are beardless, young followers of the star, striding forward. They're shown as foreigners, which means they wear leggings and tunics, not something any self-respecting Roman would wear. So when you saw somebody with leggings on at Piazza Navona, you knew he was a foreigner. In the catacombs, you see 2, 3, and even 4 Magi. The Bible doesn't say there were 3. The Magi became kings in art in the 10th century. In Eastern art, they wear beards, they're very swarthy looking, and they're different ages. We'll see this in the art. Ultimately, they represent 3 continents, and one is painted black to represent Africa. In Western art, they're sumptuously dressed, especially in the Renaissance. They look like they're the richest people in town, and they probably were. And they wear crowns and are 3 ages and 3 races. The Magi were an opportunity for an artist to go wild, especially in the Renaissance. So we start in the catacombs. This would be a tomb where a body would be placed in there, and then the entrance covered over with wet plaster, which you could paint on. Here we see 4 Magi, 2 on the left and 2 on the right. This artist wanted to balance everything. So you see them striding forward. They're not kings. They have on these funny little hats, and their leggings and tunics. They're bringing gifts. Here 2 on the other side. In the catacomb of Donatello, we get 3. And you can see here you imagine they're young and beardless and are taking their gifts to Mary, who's sitting on a throne with baby Jesus. Another with 3. Now look at those hats. They're called Phrygian bonnets. Old Testament prophecy of Balaam, a star shall come forth out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. So the man standing behind Mary on an early Christian sarcophagus is not Joseph. Joseph's not important. I do a whole presentation on the nativity, and Joseph is mostly asleep. He's off to the side because he wasn't the father of this child. He didn't know what the heck was going on. And so the man behind Mary is Balaam the prophet. This is the front part of an early Christian sarcophagus. On the left side, you see Cana, the miracle of Cana. You see the little pots on the ground, and that would be. Let me find my red button here. These little pots on the ground. And then the Magi come striding forward here, bringing their gifts to Mary. And behind her is Balaam, the prophet, not Joseph. I love looking at early Christian sarcophagi. If you grew up Baptist in Waco, you knew every Bible story that there was, and we learned them all. And so you could test yourself by looking at an early Christian sarcophagus and say, what are these stories? Well, if you start at the far right top, start up here, you see God. I bet you didn't know that's what God looked like. Because he's creating Adam and Eve. And you see Adam and Eve here are nude because they're in the Garden of Eden. And here's the snake in the tree right there. And then you get these images of Christ and the loaves and the fishes. They're the puffy loaves of bread, and the fish are he's turning them into a feast for the 5,000. And the wedding at Cana represented by the little pots of wine here. And then the bottom part is the arrest of Peter. This guy may have been named Peter, and he was rich enough to afford a sarcophagus. So he probably wanted a scene from Peter on it. We know it's Peter because here's the cock that crowed when Peter denied Jesus. He knew Jesus. In the middle is another salvation story. Daniel with the lions. Daniel in the lion's den. And then Jesus healing the blind right here. And then the three Magi come following the star, and there's Balaam. So here are the Magi with their funny outfits and hats. Again, the clothing indicates that they're foreigners. They're not from just around here. Here they are in another sarcophagus pointing to the star with Mary and Jesus and Balaam. Oh, sorry. Keep pushing the wrong one. Finally, sorry. So here they are following the star. The prototypes of the Magi come from Roman art. Tribute bearers bring gifts to the Roman emperor. So if you look, I'm so sorry. If you look at the bottom of this diptych and you see people dressed like the Magi eventually will be dressed like. These are prototypes of what the Magi will look like. And they're bearing gifts. You know they're foreigners because of their leggings, and they're traveling with a lion, which normal Romans didn't do that. The column of Marcus Aurelius shows Marcus standing on a little platform and giving a speech. And down in front of him are tribute bearers bringing gifts to the emperor. They're foreigners with their leggings on, and they carry their gifts on veiled hands, which means they were very expensive gifts. They wouldn't even touch them. This is a sarcophagus of a patriarch of the early Christians, the sarcophagus of the exarch Isaac in Ravenna. Oh, and here, they seem to be bringing popcorn to the baby. I can't figure out what else it would be. And Jesus is sitting on Mary's lap and reaching out like any child would do to get the gift. This is an early Christian book cover, well, it's 6th century. And if you look at the top row has the Magi coming forward with pizzas. And around the diptych are, here's take up your bed and walk, miracle. There we go. And the raising of Lazarus, miracle. And the Last Supper. Oh, here's the Last Supper. And this is the angel and the 3 Marys at the tomb after the resurrection. The Last Supper. And this is dividing things between Peter and Paul. And at the bottom is the wedding at Cana with these big pots. Jesus turned a lot of water into a lot of wine. At the top, you see the Magi, and one of them carries a cornucopia. You'll see this later. It's a sign of abundance. They're bringing him all they have. And later, you'll see this show up again, this cornucopia. Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome, a beautiful 5th century church. And at the near the apse, they have this scene of the 3 Magi. Here they are, the 3 Magi, 1, 2, and one's over here. And here's 4 angels. Here's Mary, and here's baby Jesus looking like a Roman emperor on a little cushion on the throne. Now, the Magi are really decked out. They remind me of the Supremes. Do you remember the Supremes? Motown. They kind of got on their Motown look. But they've got their pizzas, and anyway, Mary's looking a little puzzled. There's the star above Jesus in his little Roman emperor look. Santa Paula Nuova Ravenna has this procession coming down. In the front leading it are the 3 Magi. There they are, Balthazar, Melchior, and Caspar. Of course, they're not named in the Bible, they're named later. But aren't they fancy? This is mosaics, and this is, I believe, 6th century. It's very early. Look at those bonnets, look at their hats. They're called Phrygian bonnets. In the French Revolution, the revolutionaries wore these. The first one is the older one, Caspar. The middle one's the middle-aged man, and the third is the swarthy foreigner from who knows what country he might have been from. But they're all carrying different gifts, striding forward in the palm trees. Here's Caspar with gold probably. Melchior and Balthazar. Now, Balthazar will soon become African American. Now, see if you can find the Magi in this image. And this is the Emperor Theodora in Constantinople, in Ravenna, excuse me. And on her dress at the bottom, if you look down here come the Magi. They wore these like an amulet to protect them from getting sick. They thought if they had a Christian holy image on their dress, it might protect them. So there they are on the empress's dress. It also was a sign that they approved of Christianity. Here you see they have become three kings. They finally have crowns. Melchior, Balthazar, and then they're in the sky again. Joseph is trying to be helpful. And at last, they are crowned kings. This is an Ottonian manuscript from 1050, where they all have on crowns. And see that one of them has a cornucopia.
What are they standing on?
They look like rocks. They look like, I think it's just, I've wondered that myself. Because their feet are barely kind of hovering. It's just a stylized idea of maybe Mary and Jesus being the holy figures, and she's on the throne, but the Magi are on these rocks. I don't know. Here again, an Ottonian manuscript where they are kings. Charlemagne was a big believer in education and started schools and wanted to do all he could to get into heaven. So he built a lot of churches and he went and bought a bunch of relics and gave them to churches. This is one of my very favorites. This is in Autun, France. It's the top of a capitol. The capitol is the top part of a column that's decorated, that's carved. And to me, these guys look so French. They're so skinny. And have these long, drawn faces. And the first one is kneeling and giving the baby Jesus a gift. And like most babies, he reaches out to take it. Here's one little hand, and here's the other hand. Taking the gift. The kings are taking off their crowns. And this is my favorite, the sleeping Magi. They needed to take a nap before they made that long trip home. So they all gathered under one of the blankets and took a nap. And the angel comes and says, wait, you guys got to go. And there's the star you can follow. So he points to the star up there. And this one's eyes pop open. See, he touches his hand and wakes this one up, and then he can wake up his buddies. So there he is, popping awake. Now, Now we move to the early Renaissance with Giotto in Italy. This is in the Arena Chapel in Padua, and the Magi are coming on their donkeys. This is the happiest donkey in the history of art. I'll show you some details. It also was a time that there was a comet sighted in the sky. So Giotto included that. Rather than have a traditional star for them to follow, he gave them a comet. And they're in this little lean-to shelter. And the Magi are kneeling at Jesus' feet and paying him homage. There's the cornucopia. And there's that donkey. You see this is fresco. You put up enough wet plaster that you can complete that part in a day. And then the paint dries into the wall, and then it's forever. So, but blue is made from lapis lazuli, and it does not adhere. So when you see these frescoes, oftentimes the blue has flaked off. Now we get into high Renaissance, high fancy Cecil B. DeMille version of the Magi, cast of thousands. So here they come, wandering over hill and valley and into, that doesn't look like Bethlehem to me, but and here they are. I'll show you the details, but riding on, the three of them ride together. But first they sight the star over here. They're standing on this rock and they see a star and say they better follow it. So they start going. When they get to the stable, they find Mary and Jesus and Joseph asleep over here, which is his usual posture. These are the midwives. The midwives get into the story because women said, Mary couldn't have done all that by herself. You know, she had to have help. So the midwives make an appearance. You see how much gold leaf is on this. What the people in Florence were doing were, the rich people were competing to see who could provide the best altarpiece in the church. And so this was paid for by a wealthy family. It starts on the far left top, and here are the Magi on this hillside, see a star. So they saddle up and head out. And here they come with their animals. They have exotic animals. Cosimo de' Medici had a conference in Florence about this time, and all these rich potentates came from across the world, and they were dressed in great finery and had exotic animals. So you even see animals on the backs of these horses. There's a leopard, I think a cheetah, monkeys. And there are the three Magi traveling close together. When they get to the stable, such as it is, the eldest Magi, Casper, leans forward and kisses the baby's foot. It's very sweet. The other Magi take their crowns off. The midwives in the background are looking at these gifts that they brought, saying, do you think this is real? They're really checking it out and talking about it, having a little analysis. You always get in nativity the ox and the ass. They're always there. The nativity has to take place in the stable, and there's always an ox and an ass, or it's not a nativity. So this artist brings those into this. Here's the ox and the donkey, and Joseph sleepy out of it. Now, there's and down here, there's a groom removing the spurs of this Magi. Look at their outfits. This suggests how rich things were in Florence. Now, a very famous, probably the greatest art historian of all time was Leo Steinberg. And he was fascinated with the sexuality of Christ. He wrote a book. Everyone had noticed it. Why is Christ nude? Why is he increasingly nude? More nude even. Why is he completely naked? Well, Steinberg had the courage to write a book about that. And so we see the gradual unveiling of the baby. In those early ones, he was wrapped in swaddling clothes, and here he's kind of being unveiled. And look, I left this little hand on the head of the Magus right here. Probably tickling him. I mean, this kiss on his toes was probably tickling. There's the groom removing the spurs. Now this shows it was a good artist because he could do a figure receding into depth. And that was kind of new in art. Now you see some of the exotic animals right here. A leopard, I guess that's a lion. And this guy is looking up maybe at a falcon. Falconing was very popular. Now, Steinberg believes that, and I think he's right, that people wanted Jesus to not just be a God, they wanted him to be a man. So this is pointing out that indeed he was, and this Magus is looking kind of to be sure. So there it is, probably the most elaborate altarpiece in the history of art. The Medici Palace has a fresco by Benozzo Gozzoli, and it reflects the memory of this council that hosted by Cosimo de' Medici. People like Pope Pius II, John VII, Joseph, Patriarch of Constantinople, and the Medici get to be in it. You know, if you pay for it, you can be in it. And so they did. They paid for it and they were in it. So here comes another cast of thousands with Cosimo de' Medici riding right here. His two sons are here. This one is dead, so he looks he's kind of gray. And here's another Medici. This is Lorenzo the Magnificent. And he was. And these are the Strozzi girls. The Strozzi were the other really wealthy family. And so they're those daughters. You see it goes on and on and on. So here's Cosimo and Piero. Doesn't he look like a wily banker? He would not let them elect him, well, certainly not king, but mayor or anything like that. He wanted to stay in the background and run the show from behind the scenes. So he did. But you wouldn't want to be in a dark alley with him. And there's his son Paolo. He's the one who had died right before this. Here's the artist. If you see in a painting someone is looking directly at you, it may be the artist who's put himself in it. So Benozzo Gozzoli put himself in it and wrote Opus, or this is the work of Benozzo Gozzoli. Now here's the rest of the cavalcade of people journeying to Florence. Here's one of the Medici boys. How about that outfit? Here's the Archbishop of the Eastern Christian Church. And Lorenzo the Magnificent. And on his saddle stuff, I don't know what you call that, there are the Medici feathers right here. Feathers and these balls, like it's part of their coat of arms. Here are the Strozzi girls, and a young man, with a cheetah. This is a round painting called a tondo, where the Magi are coming down the road through the arch and down here to the Christ child. And in the background, they're horseshoeing a horse. In that, right there. And here, again, now Jesus is almost completely nude. Peacocks symbolize eternal life. So we get two of them here. These nude guys on the left might have been lepers. They were made to beg outside the city walls. Now we see the Medici family, Giuliano, Giovanni, Lorenzo's on the left, right here. And right here is the artist, Botticelli. He puts himself in it. And he, of course, was one of the great ones. These are two Medici boys right here and here. And this is the one who's no longer living. There's cocky, smart aleck Lorenzo, who was also brilliant and rich. Piero and Giovanni. And this Botticelli Adoration shows a ruined pagan temple. This was to suggest that pagan religion was dead. Christianity has come and is the religion now. And so the pagan temples are falling into ruin. Another weird pagan temple. And the Magi taking a close look at Jesus. Leonardo da Vinci, one of the geniuses of all times. He had one bad habit, though. He didn't like to finish anything. So he'd get started on something and crank out what's enough to satisfy himself, and then he'd go on to the next invention or creation. So here's his Adoration of the Magi, which is really just the underpainting for a painting. And he liked to go out on the street and do a sketchbook of faces. So you get all these faces. That's what he's really doing here, is showing you a variety of faces. And then he puts in this weird horse rearing here that was, faces, though. You know, we only have one Leonardo in this country. It's in the National Gallery in Washington, Ginevra da Vinci. So when you see a Leonardo, take a good long look. Jesus is lifting up the gift that the Magus has brought. Montaigne does this wonderful kind of a dry look of Jesus and the Magi from different countries. Here's an Ethiopian. But I love this cup, this porcelain cup, which you might see in Florence at this time, full of gold coins. It's beautiful. Now, let's jump across the Alps, and we'll do the last part of the program. Northern Renaissance art is very different from Italian Renaissance. It's my favorite because it's detailed. They put in every possible thing they can, and most everything is symbolic. You come at it from a bird's eye view. The artist is looking down on the scene. It's highly narrative. It's great for teaching Sunday school because it's got everything there. So here's the Magi in a church of some kind. And you can see, it's hard to tell on this slide, but there's a black Magus right here. So it's 3 ages, 3 different continents usually. And Joseph is awake. Quentin Massey is another Northern Renaissance artist from the area around, well, it was Flanders, so Brussels. And again, you definitely get the 3 ages, the elder, the middle-aged, and then the black Magus carrying fabulous gifts. Now, these are gifts you might see on a table, a fancy dinner table. And here's a staff of some kind. But the Northern artists like to put it right up close to you and give you a lot of detail. Roger van der Weyden was another Northern artist. They're bringing gifts. I like Joseph's clogs and this funny hat this one has. Again, these show that these guys are foreigners. They're not from here. And the ruined temple, it's a ruined shed kind of thing now. But here's a crucifixion. What's that doing there? And then you get a whole cityscape in the background. And the ox and the ass. I love his outfit. Bosch, if you know anything about Bosch, you know he's weird. The Garden of Earthly Delights is his most famous painting. And here you see a shed, a ruined, I don't know what it is, house falling down. There's a guy on the roof, shepherd on the roof. And here come the Magi, the elder, the middle-aged, and the black from Africa. And then there's this weird guy in the doorway. There's the shepherd on the roof. But look at this man in the doorway. He's got a glass thing on his leg that's covering up a wound of some kind. You can see that maybe here. It's weird. He's not really dressed for the occasion. beautiful black Magas, and the middle-aged and the elder. Albert Dürer from Northern Europe, Nuremberg, and he has the three ages depicted. Of course, the ox and the ass are still there. And Mary looks like a German Hausfrau, and kind of hefty. But the Magi are three different ages. And this later, Dürer will do a self-portrait that looks a lot like this Magus. And there he's quoting Leonardo's horse. See the rearing horse there. Psalm 68, because of thy temple at Jerusalem, kings bear gifts to thee. Let Ethiopians hasten to stretch out her hands to God. So all parts of the world were coming to recognize Jesus. And there's that Leonardo horse. Lynn Gerard of St. John's was from Haarlem, Belgium. And again, you get the three ages of Magi in the black Ethiopian, and Jesus reaching in to get whatever gift this Magus has brought. Jesus participating a little more. And I do like his clocks. Those look very contemporary to me. Jan Gossert, this is a beautiful painting in the National Gallery in London. If you ever get there, it's huge. And it shows again the black Magus. But look at these ornate gifts they're bringing. This one, a tall thing. Here's another one brought by this Magus. And Joseph is stumbling out of the door here, looking very confused, like he'd been hit by a truck. And these dogs were a quotation from, became a quotation for Dürer. Everybody wanted Dürer dogs in their pictures. Look at Joseph. I'm a little worried about him. I love these gifts. Another Jan Gossert. This is getting up to the end of the Renaissance, where things go a little, not so much harmony and balance as in the Renaissance. Hans Memling, another northern artist. The black Magus here. Joseph, the kneeling Magus, and the third. Those are three Magi. And again, Christ has been, as Leo Steinberg pointed out, completely undressed and given to us to show us that he was indeed a man. Peter Bruegel, my favorite artist. This is 1564. He lived in the area around Brussels. And he liked to go out and hobnob with the common people and go to their picnics and things. And so you see a lot of normal or kind of street people looking. Even the Magi don't look too sharp. Then there's this one figure in there, the black Midas. You can't even, you have to look to see his face here. It's right here. But he's got this nautilus shell made into a table decoration. It may have held wine. You may have been able to pour wine out of this. But look at that. That's pretty fancy. And these are ones I've seen in museums. They actually did exist, and rich people could use them on their tables. We can't forget Rembrandt. His are down-to-earth people, common people, everyday scenes in warm family homes, and then this Ottoman Turk hovers over them. Peter Paul Rubens always goes to excess. Tissot in the 19th century shows the Magi traveling across deserts to get there. Now, where are the Magi today? They're in Cologne. They're in the church in Cologne. You had to have a relic to make a church sacred. And so their relics are the Magi in this huge gold container in Cologne. There it is. Gives you some idea. Powerful image it is. Shows you the scale. Now, today, if three Magi wandered into a bar, the bartender would say, "Oh yeah, more like the three wise guys, I'd say." So he's not amused to have them there. And they look a little lost. If the wise men had been women, they would ask for directions, arrived on time, helped deliver the baby, cleaned the stable, brought more practical gifts, and brought a casserole. Okay, that's it. Thank you for coming. They weren't oils until after the Renaissance, Northern Renaissance, Dürer and those people, 1500. There may have been some before that, but generally the frescoes, wet plaster with painted on the plaster. And there may be some artists in here who could answer that better than I. Well, thank you so much. I hope you know more about the Magi now.